So, hi everybody, and welcome. Glad to see you here. Can't have Valentine's Day go past without saying something about something. And some of you know that I kind of rage. I've been known at times to rage about Valentine's Day and the big loser that it is. A few decades ago, had an event called Avert the Valentine's Day Disaster. And you could read that article at AllisonArmstrong.com if you want, under free. But tonight, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about romantic love. And some of you are aware our process is that I decide what I want to talk about. And then I ask you what questions you have about that. And then I pick the questions that call to me to respond to. And I do take into account how you vote on these potential questions, just so you know, I really do take it into account. And but then I'm always marveling at questions that don't seem to apply to what we're working on. And and then there's this marginal area. So I'm going to start by addressing a couple of questions that have less to do with love than people think they have to do with love. So I'm going to address those first. And then I'm going to answer the question someone asked me, what is your definition of romantic love? So I'm going to give you my definition of romantic love. And the definition came from men, from listening to men and what they had to say about what makes something romantic. And that's going to then illuminate me and responding to the questions. I'll tell you what they are. How to love a man when he's battling something intense in life. 96% of you voted that up. How to not build resentment over time and keep the joyful romantic love. That was 95%, and I'm going to address that. How do I have the best, happy, long lasting relationship? I'll be responding to that, both in what there is to keep generating as the person in the relationship and also what you most have to interact with in an extraordinary way. So I'll talk about that. And that leads into the question, what does it take to reconnect if you get back together after a breakup? It's very close to how do you have the best, happy, long lasting relationship. And I don't know if I'm going to get to it or not because I really only have a study of one, and that's me. How is romantic love and sex over 50? So I can tell you from my own personal survey, how about the best ever? And I recommend it. And it's not accidental. And it relates to the things that I'll be talking about ahead of time. So I'm glad we got that one over with. All right. So here are a couple questions that, excuse me, that don't have as much to do with love as you might think. So the first is, should you have this aha moment when you meet the one, or should it be more subtle? 90% of you voted on that one. I said, yes. Okay, you might not like this answer. Um, it is my firm belief, and I talk about this at length in our Understanding Love and Commitment online course, that the whole idea of the one, that there is such a thing as one person out of 8+ billion people that is your soulmate, that is right for you, that is going to be the pick of a lifetime, the one. I think that is one of the most detrimental expressions of scarcity. And our planet has been steeped in a paradigm of scarcity from the very beginning. And so it's a hard thing to shake. But what if there isn't the one? What if there are literally hundreds, if not thousands of people that could be a right person for you, that could be amazing for you, that could be someone that you're better off bonded to them than you are not. And this is a standard that we use around here. So, what does a person need to be? What do you need them to generate being? And what kinds of attitudes do they need to have? And what kind of behaviors do they need to exhibit in the most important areas of your life for you to be better off with them than without them? So now this flies in the face of the instinct to couple no matter what. Just try to get the best one in the pond, whatever the size of the pond is, and hide out in a cave together and survive the tigers and the cold. And I I was married in the traditional sense till death do us part, raised an amazing family, and and then Greg died almost 7 years ago, and found myself at 58 years old, suddenly single, and knowing what it takes literally to build a brilliant marriage, a brilliant partnership, and knowing all that that took. I wasn't so sure I wanted to do it again. and but then I realized that I need what can be provided in a romantic relationship, in a romantic love with a man. And I decided to head back in, and I had to relearn everything I learned about men in the previous, since 1991. 35 years ago next week, I found out I was bringing out the worst in men. But it's really being single now for this amount of time, and I consider myself single, even though I have a partner and the third love of my life. I consider myself single because I've never given up the advantages of being single, of being self-determined, of being autonomous, even of having my own space. So, an aha moment when you meet the one, men have told me they know in the first 30 seconds to 3 minutes who a woman might be for them, like what is the highest possibility that she could be for them. Um, but then, and depending on how much chemistry they have, it depends on how well they do this. But then there's due diligence. And due diligence is evidentiary. And this is where we have to teach ourselves to pay attention to what people say and then pay attention to are their actions congruent with what they say, and is how they're being good for you. And one of the most important questions, do you like who you are when you're around them? Often the people we're the most attracted to bring out the worst in us, and so we're better off without them. So should it be more subtle? Should it be aha? Since I'm not sure there's a one in the first place, and I don't think any of these moments, oftentimes they have way more to do with attraction, especially chemical attraction or economic attraction, and nothing to do with love. Okay, then this is an interesting one. When are men, now I'm going to read it how it was written, and I think there's a missing word. When are men most likely to feel and act on it? So I can respond to that question. When are they most likely to feel and act on it? But maybe the person intended, even though 94% said yes to that, when are men most likely to feel love and act on it? Now, this might seem that it has everything to do with romantic love. And it does in terms of an experience of romantic love. However, one of the most important things that men have taught me about themselves is that men trust facts, not feelings. And this is where their due diligence comes in. This is where they're watching if what a person says, their actions are congruent with it, and that makes them a trusted source of information. And while women's feelings tend to be like a stack of pancakes in the center of our chest, a whole bunch of feelings all in the same place stacked up, everything from sadness and grief to compassion to joy and happiness and love. Men's feelings seem to be tucked into nooks and crannies in some ways in different parts of their body. So they're not as central as most women's, and they have to go hunting for a feeling to find it. So if you ask them a feeling question, then put the imaginary duct tape over your mouth and settle in to listen, and maybe let them know they could get back to you in a few days about that. Um, but the most important thing about men and feelings is that they consider it to be honorable to do the right thing no matter how they feel. Now, this is, to me, it's mostly really good news, but it was shocking. So, this is why men don't have to like a person to save them, to haul them back from in front of a bus. They have the within reach concept. You're within reach, they'll save you. It doesn't matter whether they have nice feelings about you or not, because it has to do with who they are and not who you are. And that's one of the most important things to know about men, how their actions are generated from who they are. Now, can we inspire them? Absolutely. But it's going to come from connecting with who they are. And that's what the Queen's Code is about. So, on the other hand, an honorable man, he will consider it honorable, and I'll just put it in the most brutal way, he will consider it honorable to not marry a woman he loves when he knows he can't give her what he thinks she needs, what he's decided she needs. Something else we talk about in understanding love and commitment, how men decide what women need. And this goes back to being a trusted source. You could say you need one thing, but if your actions don't seem congruent, then you're not a trusted source of what you need. And they have all these other ways to decide what you need. So the idea of doing the right thing, no matter how they feel, that goes in either direction. They could love someone or hate someone. That's irrelevant to the right thing to do. And most men hold themselves to that standard, and they're human, and they don't always live up to it, and they will be the ones that that know that they didn't. And it's really, really hard on them when they know that they didn't. They're hard on themselves. They hold themselves to account for so much more than almost any woman thinks or knows. Even me, I'm still discovering. Okay, those are the things we're not talking about. That's pretty funny. All right. So the question, what is your definition of romantic love? So we're going to talk about, well, there's going to be some adjectives and some verbs and some nouns. And let's talk about the romantic part. So in the way that men speak about a romantic interest, a romantic relationship, there is a combination of both a physical attraction, meaning his body is attracted, and that his heart has gotten involved. Another way you could say this, that they talk about it, and it's a word that women dismiss too often. And you can hear more about that in Sync with the Opposite Sex. Um, it's when they care. So they're physically attracted. Their physicality is attracted to that person, it which has to do with her physicality and how she's being. So all kinds of things go into that. And he cares about her. There has to be both components. And the way many men express that they care about a woman is that they'll say she's special. She's special. It's not just physical, she's special. And caring is the biggest expenditure of energy a man can make. And for a woman to cause him to care about her is a big deal. And one of the most beautiful things about men is the expression carefree, to be carefree. Yeah, there's a freedom in not caring. However, there's purpose. Purpose shows up in caring. And men are the happiest, the healthiest, the most content and productive when they have a purpose, when they do care. It's also when they get more frustrated. Caring brings everything. And this is a huge topic. And I'm just going to tell you this part because I'm not going to teach it here. Okay. So at the end of this, Tyler will post on Instagram the link and the promotional code, which I'll tell you in case you're here with me on Zoom, for the Making Sense of Men ebook. And in the Making Sense of Men ebook, which is the only nonfiction printed book I've ever published, we distinguish between what causes a man to experience physical attraction versus what causes him to be mentally and emotionally and even spiritually attracted. And then what are the behaviors that go with each? Because it's quite predictable. And the good news is the top four qualities that cause a man to care, to want to befriend or mentor or even make himself accountable for her being happy for the rest of her life, also known as Mary, um, are all inspired by these four qualities. And so you can read about that in the Making Sense of Men ebook. And for those of you who already have, I want to give you a piece that has been showing up recently in the research I'm doing in order to be able to type, I channel it, so I don't write it, to type the sequel to the Queen's Code. And I have no idea when it's going to be out because it's huge and I'm having to transform just to be able to receive it. But here's the thing to know. The four top qualities that have men be inspired to care about and want to protect and provide for, be inspired to do that beyond their instincts, are all perceived by men as strengths. This is perceived as, they're perceived as strengths in a woman. So if you can imagine self-confidence perceived as a strength, authenticity, they also call it being real, the courage to be real, to speak up, to say what's true for you, is a strength. Passion is a strength. And the fourth, receptivity, is a strength. They do not perceive a strength, a woman turning down right and left what she's inspiring men to provide, and then she won't receive it. There's strength in receiving, there's honor and dignity in receiving. It's an art. And we had to learn and practice it around here for a long time. So the thing that I've discovered and articulated lately that is blowing my mind is that men naturally are hunting for in a mate, in a business partner, being on the same team, for an enterprise, they're hunting for strength. Now, women are also hunting for, we're scanning for strength all the time. Who can protect me? Who can provide for me? Who will have good genes to pass on to my children? But men are specifically hunting for complementary strength. As one man put it, I'm not looking for someone who's like me. Now, if you think of like the fingers being strength and the weak and the spaces in between, places that a man knows he's not strong. He might even call it a weakness if he was ever going to say that terrible, terrible word. But he's looking for someone whose strengths complement his, that his strengths fill in for what he knows he's not good at. This is awesome. It's such an awesome thing to know that who he's going to pick is someone that he admires. And this has everything to do with love. He's going to pick someone who he admires for their strengths, that he respects them for their strengths. And he has an affinity for how they're being. He has an affinity for that. Okay, so respect, admiration, and affinity. Guess what those three things do? Those actually cause the space in our body for the feeling of love. The feeling of love. Why do I stress feeling of love? Because the answer to this question, how to love a man when he's battling something intense in life, how to love, not how to feel love, how to love. The verb, love. Love is also a verb, loving, active. It's an active thing to do. And how to love a man who's battling something intense in life, one of the most loving things you can do is ask him. Ask him, what feels like love to you now? What would you experience as an expression of love from me? I'm trying to love you by doing this and that and the other thing. And it doesn't seem to be registering. What does register as love? And does it matter to you to feel loved while you're going through what you're going through? And listen, again, imaginary duct tape or just practice. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000 in your head silently. 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. I keep teaching listening to men because so many people tell me this one thing transformed their whole marriage. So count to 30, like 30 seconds. Just wait, let him think, let him go to the well and get the information you're looking for. And if it's feelings, it's going to take way longer than 30 seconds. So my coaching for all women and all men is don't ask any question you're not willing to wait for the answer for. Just don't ask. If we're going to start to answer and you're going to talk over us and interrupt us, it's so hurtful. And the same thing when women do that to men. When we do it to each other, it's so disrespectful and or hurtful, depending on what you're paying attention to. So how to love anybody. You can have loving feelings by looking for what you admire in them and respect in them and have affinity for. We teach that in causing loving feelings. But the verb is something to ask them about. How can I love you the best? All right. The next question is how to not build resentment over time and keep the joyful romantic love. So going back to romantic, meaning there's physical attraction. This translates into what many people refer to as a sex life. And then there's love, as in the feeling of love that we experience through respect, admiration, and affinity for another person. This, by the way, if you're working on self-love, it applies to you, and I encourage you to watch Causing Those Loving Feelings. And then there's love as a verb. And how to not build resentment over time is actually to it's courageous. It's one of the most loving things you do. Um, Resentment, someone once named aged anger, which it feels like that to me. That it's old, aged, simmering maybe anger, and um, that would be part of what we call the anger spectrum, which arises when we need something to start or we need something to stop. And it can start with an irritation or an annoyance, and it can end up in fury. And the problem is our instincts prevent us from revealing that we need something to stop or start until we're more angry about what's happening or not happening than we are afraid of the consequences of speaking up. And this is why love, really love as a verb, is a victory of human spirit. And you have to overcome the instinct to not say what you need to have start or stop before you're pissed. Like when you can just say it without rancor and without, and this is where we teach all over our curriculum, what if no one's misbehaving? If you think what they're doing or not doing is a misbehavior, and it's personal to you and it's an affront to you, then it will give you the desire to punish. And the desire to punish and the things we do to punish, opposite of love, not love, not even close to love. And we can actually, and this is one of the things that men have taught us, that by diminishing them again and again and punishing them and treating them like they're hairy, misbehaving women, that we can do one of the worst things possible to a man. And that is we can teach him to not care. We can actually kill the care in him, which is how he expresses love. He cares. So, how to not build resentment over time is to speak up about what you really need to stop or start and find out if the other person's willing to do that and what's your part. One of the biggest questions to ask, what's my part? If you're willing to stop doing that, what's my part? How can I support that? What do you need from me? If you're willing to do that on a regular basis, that would be amazing. It would provide so much for me. Let me tell you about it. And what would you need from me? And this will often involve things that are partner things to do that nurture romantic love that many people think they shouldn't have to do. Like innate in most men is there's no point in stating the obvious. Well, what's obvious to most men is not obvious to the people on the other side. And so a loving thing to do is actually to state the obvious. Um, yeah, add some details. We need details, guys. And it's loving to look at somebody as if they're just try this one out if you want. What if every person or most people, or for sure the people you have close to you, what if they're giving you their best interpretation of what they heard you say? This comes from our partnership level. If you want to really have powerful romantic love, partnership. What if they're giving you the best interpretation of what they heard you say? Well, wouldn't that make you curious about what they heard you say and if it was different than what you thought you said? It can be loving to verify and clarify. Can I tell you what I heard? Because I might have missed something. It's amazing. So, how to not build resentment is don't go without what you can't live without, and don't put up with what you're not willing to live with. Now, the other side of this, right? How do I have the best, happy, long-lasting relationship? So, there's two parts of it. One of it is keep generating what had him pick you in the first place. So live your life in such a way that you keep contributing to your own self-confidence, that you keep looking for what is your truth and express your truth. We call it coughing up the truth. And feed your passion. It's one of the biggest things that both men and women need from their partner, that you're doing something in your life that fills you up. So you come to me not an empty or half empty swimming pool trying to fill yourself up from me. So taking care of what you're passionate about is one of the best things that you can do. And it's the most loving things you can do is seek your passions and express your passions and nurture your passions. And that is one of the things that has us overflow to the other person. And this isn't just like emotional or mystical or this idea. They've actually shown that when a woman is talking about what she's passionate about, men's bodies release the hormone into their bloodstream that gives them a sense of well-being. And you can actually see them get bigger and bigger and bigger as you're speaking about what you're passionate about. By the way, this is why we teach men, don't ask a woman, how are you? If someone's focused on productivity, how are you is the team captain's question to figure out what capacities he can count on you for. And he expects maybe a 1 or 3 word answer. Head's good, needs bad. I'm fine, meaning you can count on me what you can normally count on me for. If someone's organized around being connected, then how are you is you telling me everything about your life that I might see myself in and might see you better, and you'll be seen and heard and known, and we'll have this yummy feeling of connection, and it could take 3 hours for you to tell it all. Well, if someone's listening for what can I count on my teammate for, and they're telling me all this connective information, they're going to be listening for the point, and they're going to interrupt, and the other person's going to get their feelings hurt. Sorry, there's a reason we're called opposite sexes. We have, let's see, we have it somewhere, I think. When does gender matter? Gender hormones matter. They shape the brain. Okay, so if you keep generating your self-confidence and your authenticity and your passion and your receptivity, and this is one of the trickiest things and is also part of how's romantic love and sex over 50. It's the same as any other time in life. If you have hurt feelings, if you've been crushed by disrespect, it will kill sex. It will kill physical attraction. It will kill that whole domain of life. We'll just shut down. Men and women both will shut down from being hurt and being disrespected. So it really matters that we learn to do something, and I'll tell you where to find it because it's about, I don't know, I think it's like 7 or 8 hours worth of both information and worksheets and things to figure out about yourself. And it's called Connecting Through Conflict. So we tend to avoid conflict in romantic relationships in order to try to preserve the yummy feelings, preserve the lovey-dovey and the let's jump in bed feelings. So we're going to avoid the conflicts. Well, that's how you end up with resentment. And that's how you end up with it not being long lasting. Because guess what? I don't care how much you work on finding someone that you're compatible with, there will still be conflicts. And connecting through conflicts distinguishes the 4 main sources of conflict that end up in like a 10-car pileup altogether if we don't distinguish them and see really what's in conflict here. And sometimes what's in conflict, they're not the same things. Like we might think that we have a conflict in needs, or we might think we have a conflict in values. Not necessarily. You could have a conflict between a value and an expectation. They're not even on the same playing field and therefore cannot be solved because they're not interacting one on one. So if we commit to knowing ourselves in a meaningful way, then we can actually connect through what I would call apparent conflict. And it really involves being extraordinary in how we interact with conflict, which connecting through conflict starts with, do you disconnect with conflict? And illuminates why and how both men and women disconnect at a, sometimes even a suspicion of conflict. And often we disconnect with ourselves. We start betraying ourselves in that moment. And some of you know that our work is based on honor yourself first or all is lost. And over the last 35 years since I started studying men, I have seen that over and over and over again. And it is so normal for both men and women to dishonor ourselves, to sacrifice who we are for what we think is needed or what we think is pleasing. So maybe what you're getting out of this is there's nothing wrong with you and your ability to have romantic relationships. They're really tricky. And generating the space for love by no matter how someone's being, still looking for what's admirable about them and what causes you to respect them and what gives you affinity towards them, and even intervening if you had. There was a time in the last couple years that Greg and I were married. We were married for 26 years and together almost for 28. And I came to him one day and said, there's something that you've stopped doing that's really important to me, and it's causing me to lose admiration for you. And I didn't say it in any like, and you're a jerk. It's just, this is the truth. And he looked at me and goes, oh my gosh, what? Because that's the last thing, right? We choose people we admire, hopefully, and then whose admiration do we want the most? We only care to be admired by people we admire, right? So me telling him that, that was a final on fire. And I was just really straight. I said, you stopped doing what you said you would do. And one of the reasons I married you and picked you was because of your integrity, that you did what you said you would do and you stopped. It's like, oh my gosh, I better fix that. And he was retired and he discovered this amazing thing called a calendar. And he would put on the calendar what he told me he would do it by when he would do it. And then he made sure he did it. And I got to admire him again, just even for the try that he took it on. He didn't have to be perfect at it. It was awesome. Okay. There's a question here. What does it take to reconnect if you get back together after a breakup? I spent so much time talking about the other part because it's also the answer to this question. Facing and resolving the things that you needed to stop and start that didn't stop and start, and figuring out what are the real conflicts, not the apparent conflicts, what were the real conflicts, and resolving those. Or you may discover, and people have asked me for decades, how do I get back? How do I get my boyfriend back? How do I get my girlfriend back? How do we get back together? Like, I'm not going to tell you that until we figure out if it's really a good idea or not. Because often the things that we break up over, we haven't changed that much, which is always been my question when someone wants to get back together. Have you changed? Because I haven't. I still need the same things I needed that you didn't give me. whether it was as a friend or a close family member or romantically. I, I'm still me. I still need the same things. And so all the bonds that form between us over time make this like sort of like sticky glue that has us think we should get back together. Um, but I would, like I recommend with everything, harvest it. Okay, so what was I putting up with? What was I living without? Is there anything about them that they're now going to provide that? And there's evidence that they provide that now, not just that they say they will provide that. Due diligence. Honestly, it's a start over. I would have you do the exact thing I would have you do when you met someone in the first place. How are they being, and how am I responding to how they're being? And do I love how I respond to how they're being? And do I need someone to be that? Or would it be a bonus? Because that's important. One's a deal breaker and the other isn't. Okay, we are coming up on time. And I promised I would say for making sense of men, you go to AllisonArmstrong.com and it's under shop products. It's in alphabetical order. And what you would put in, so you put it in your shopping cart, and then when you're checking out, you put the promo code gift instafeb. So GIFTINSTAFEB, gift instafeb, and it's good until March 31st to receive that, and you'll be able to read it on the Allison Armstrong mobile app. And from now until the 17th, so here we are in the 11th, for 6 more days, we are giving away Making Magical Moments. And it's something I recorded in December. I'm so tickled by it. It gives away illumination and skills and practices, um, the simple practical things to do that cause extraordinary resilience in life and the ability to be present and available. So these things are pulled out from the beginning of our formal curriculum. So things are pulled out of Lux and go all the way to the other end and are being pulled out of the partnership level and the extraordinary level. And I just really encourage you to take advantage of it. You have to register by the 17th, and then whenever you register, you'll have 30 days to watch Making Magical Moments as many times as you want. And love is magical, and magical moments certainly feel like love and contain love. So that will give you direct access to being able to cause that, which is really what everything I do is about. How do you cause the life that you want? How do you cause who you're being? How do you cause what you care about? So thank you for being here. Delightful to be with you, and I hope to see you around campus.